What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back with another preview video. This one is going to be France versus Italy. This is basically going to be the decision of who's going to be able to win that Conference B. If Italy manage to beat France, then Scotland win. If France win, then France win. It's all to play for. I'm going to check on this game in the background and we'll check out the teams. Alrighty guys, Tommaso Alan's going to get us kicked off here. I'm not actually sure which stadium I've picked here. I seem to be just playing in someone's local park, but it's a big game for France-Italy, for whoever's watching from the sidelines in the AI land. But that's not what we're here for. This is just a bit of background visuals. So let's start off talking about Italy, seeing as we're playing as them. Italy, of course, didn't manage to get to play their game last week. Their Italy-Fiji game was cancelled, which is a shame. I was really looking forward to that game. That was probably one of the big games I was looking forward to seeing through this whole Autumn Nations Cup. I thought that would be such a nice match to watch, just because I class Italy as probably the lowest team in Tier 1 nations, whereas you could quantify Fiji as probably the highest level of a Tier 2 nation. And I thought it would have been a real nice sort of match to see how they sort of paired up with each other. I reckon Italy probably would have the better team on paper, but whether or not Fiji would be able to turn that into a win could have been a really fun match to watch. Unfortunately not, but it does mean that Italy are coming into this game with some very well-rested players and have everything to play for, really, just in order to grab a win for the first win in an awfully long time, probably since the World Cup. I don't think they've won anything through the Six Nations. They haven't won anything yet. They got their technical win against Fiji, but I'm sure they won't be too happy with that counting. So let's check out this Italian team. So let's pop it on screen for you guys, and it seems on the face of it to be a pretty standard Italian team. Fischetti, Bigi, Zilocchi is a good front three. They're the sort of main standard guys. I mean, there's a couple of people missing, but they tend to be on the bench in Geraldini and Ferrari, so they're pretty much set up how they would normally want to be. In terms of their locks, Lazzaroni and Canone, again, a pretty standard setup for them. The place where this does begin to change, and I'm not 100% sure why, I couldn't find out anything on it. So where this is actually going to change up for them is going to be their 6-7-8. They've lost their classic team of the Negri, Pellegri, Stain mix-up, and they've instead added in Mbanda and Johan Meyer into their 6 and 7. I'm not 100% sure why this has happened. Pellegri and Negri are by far two of the best players on the Italian team, so I can only assume this is down to injury. I don't know what's happening this week off. I don't know if some of the Italian teams have gone back to play club level and maybe they've picked up an injury there, or if they've been injured in training, or if they've just been dropped from the team. Maybe they do want to get some new blood in the front 8 there, but I think they've lost two very big players in a game which they should really be targeting, knowing that France are a little bit limited for this game. We'll get into that in a bit. Looking at the backs, Violi, who's played very well actually at scrum half. It's just a shame the team around him haven't been able to utilise it fully. They did have a very good game against Scotland, and I have been very impressed with that game in particular. They were ahead for 67 minutes, and they managed to just lose it at the end in the most normal Italian way, which is such a shame for them. They're really improving now, and they just can't hold out that 80 minutes. They're now a solid 60-minute team, and they're slowly pushing towards that 70-minute win rate, and they just can't seem to hold on. But Violi is definitely a strong reason why they're getting that far now. Garbisi gets to keep his number 10 shirt, even though Tommaso Alan has come back into the team. He did have an injury in his return game, which was a bit of a shame for him. I was looking to see a good bit of Tommaso Alan on the pitch, but he got injured very soon after coming on. But Garbisi has been playing very well, so he will of course keep that number 10 shirt. And then there have been some changes here to this back row. Luca Sperandio, I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly, is not a name I know. I believe he plays at Benetton now, which I haven't seen an awful lot of club rugby recently, so I can't say whether or not he's particularly useful. But he's overtaken Bellini for this number 11 position, which I would probably rate Bellini as one of the highest wingers in terms of Italian rugby. So he must be doing something right. So let's see what he gets to see on left wing. I'm looking forward to seeing him on the pitch. Of course, Canna and Zanon are there. Two that they had set up for the Scotland game and actually worked quite well as a centre partnership and was relatively fruitful in managing to break down some lines, and actually quite a good defensive centre partnership. Actually, they didn't really let a lot of tackles through, so managed to hold that game line up a little bit. And then Trula gets to hold on to that 14 shirt, which a couple of people even mentioned in the comments. They were surprised to see Trula on that right wing, but he must have impressed someone along the way, and hopefully he can have a good game. And of course we get to see the return of Minozzi over there in the fullback shirt. I'm a big fan of Minozzi, actually. He seems to be, I've called him the Stuart Hogg of Italian Italian rugby in the past. He seems to be the big counter runner from the kicks. He does kick it a lot himself, but he is one of the few players that really just seems to want to run it up the pitch, has a lot of passion for the counter-attack, and I'm a big fan of Minozzi, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. Overall, quite a strong starting 15. There's some big players missing, like I said, in the 6 and 7 region, and of course they're switching up their winger, but Bellini hasn't been performing particularly amazing, so maybe it's worth switching that left wing up. But overall, a relatively strong Italian team, and they can only hope to do so much in these sorts of games, but they have got a better games of chance their arm at now with this France team coming in. In terms of the subs, of course, Geraldini and Ferrari, we mentioned before, and this is where I get a little bit lost. I actually don't know a lot of these names. Secarelli, I don't know of, or Stoyan. I actually think I know. I think I've heard of Stoyan before, but I can't put a face to the name. There's a couple missing there that I'm not a big knowledge on people who aren't normally just starting international Italian rugby players. Tommaso Allan gets to pick up that 22 shirt. It's nice to see that he hasn't been severely injured. He was only playing for a few minutes in that Scotland game before he had to come off. So luckily he's back in. And then Federico Mori, who gets to go to that number 23 shirt. Looking forward to seeing a bit from him. Getting on, he is a replacement centre, which means that Italy actually have no replacement wings. I don't know if anyone can even play on the wing. I guess they could try and mix it up a bit, but hopefully they'll be able to hold on. Overall, I would say this is a above average Italian team coming in here. I think they're missing a couple of key players, but I think there's probably good reason. Having lost every game in this tournament, they know they're not going to go on to play this final, so they might as well go into France with a couple of new players, a couple of players you don't see normally, and being able to see where they can chance around and get a win, get some international time, and against a higher end international team in France. Talking of which, let us have a look at this France team. So France, in my opinion, have got quite lucky through this tournament. I mean, they had their whole reason thing going on behind the scenes with clubs not allowing them to release international players. This was something I didn't know about until the end of the Six Nations when people were leaving it down in the comments, and it sort of illuminated this for me. They came into this Autumn Nations Cup knowing that their starting 15 were only going to be allowed to play one game, which they were sort of headlined that they were going to go on to play Fiji with their starting 15 that they would usually have, and then they're going to have to mix it up. I think if you put on a B team versus Scotland, I don't think France would have won. Luckily, of course, they had the Fiji game got cancelled due to all the COVID issues, which meant that France got to put on a full-strength French team, which was such a shame for Scotland. They were trying to play well, but overall, that French team that they normally have is looking so dominant right now. I didn't really at any point see Scotland looking like they were competing to win that game. I think France had full control over it, and they played very well. Leading into this Italy game now, though, they have now lost all of those players. So this is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen here. There is effectively a B team France here going up against, I would say, pretty much close to an A team Italy for the players they can put out at this time. I am going to apologise in advance. I do not know a great deal about French club level rugby by any means. There will be a couple of names here that I will know, and I'll be able to give a bit of information on them. Otherwise, this is probably just going to be a purely visual thing. So I will chuck the team on screen now for you guys. And to be honest, I have not got a lot of information to talk about, which feels very poor as a YouTube commentary channel on rugby. Neti, Muavaka and Aldegheri. I'm sure they're a strong front three. If they've been picked for a France international team, they must be able to do something or other. But there's a couple of names here that I do actually know. Vorki and number 6, I actually have heard of before, who I believe is actually a very tall player. And I'm sure we'll be trying to make the most of trying to get him into some lineouts just to help mess up a little bit. Of course, some of the names you probably definitely will have heard of before if you're a mostly international rugby player watcher. Serin, who plays number 9, is a very good scrum half actually, and realistically, if you go back about 2 or 3 years, was looking to be the number 1 scrum half of France until Dupont came on the scene out of absolutely nowhere and has completely taken that position away from him. So Baptiste Serin will be able to be captain for this game. Jalibert, who's going to be going back in that number 10 shirt. What did I think of Jalibert in the last game? To be honest, I wasn't overly impressed. I have seen him before, and he's a very young player, and I know he will adapt as he grows a little bit older. One of the big things I was noticing that seemed to be a huge flaw in his game was coming to a penalty time. When France had a penalty and they had the ability to kick for touch, for some reason Jalibert kept taking the ball, and say he was standing 10 metres away from the touchline, he would kick the ball about 5 metres forwards into touch. but hit it so hard that it would sail about 30 to 40 metres into the stands. And I don't quite understand why at no point does he think if he just aims it at a bit more of a diagonal, he would get really great meters. He's actually got a very strong boot and is relatively accurate. And I don't know why when he gets these kicks to touches, he aims very shallow and very, very safe to a degree that it's questionable why. I thought he'd miss-hit the first one, but once he got to about the fourth penalty kick, I thought that's just his style. But I don't really understand why he doesn't go deeper. Hopefully a more experienced player can have a word with him. Maybe they can get Entermack in just to tell him, you need to kick this further downfield. However, don't talk to Stuart Hogg because he will kick the ball dead. Teddy Thomas is the only player who's going to come back in from that team that actually went on to play Scotland. I don't actually know why he gets to play one more. Maybe he played one less during the Six Nations. I haven't kept up to date fully with why all these teams work. Hopefully you guys are more aware of some of these players than me, and I can only apologise that I don't know who a lot of them are, mainly just because I haven't been able to watch a lot of French club rugby. I believe actually Villiers was he not in the Sevens team a little while back, so I'm relatively sure he'll be of a faster pace than a lot of players. He'll be quite a strong player if he plays Sevens. I believe he did play Sevens, was even in the Sevens World Cup at one point. The name completely rings a bell. But obviously France are going to be missing a lot of vital key players for this game. So this is going to be a very interesting game to watch, because this is going to be the determination of who's going to win this Conference B. And with France having such a strong position after beating Scotland this week, of course, were meant to play Fiji, so they've got their automatic win. They've already got their bonus 5 points. So at the minute, Scotland actually sit at the top of the table. And it all comes down now to what happens in this game. If Italy go on to beat France, I believe Scotland go through to the final. If France can beat Italy, France go through to the final. If it's a draw, then I actually believe Scotland go through. France are 2 points down. I'm not actually sure how they're working in this tournament, whether they give 1 or 2 points for a draw. Normally it's 1, but I don't know if they've changed any of the rules. I haven't followed the point scoring system of how they've actually done this Autumn Nations Cup. Obviously this is the first one to have ever happened. So let's talk about predictions for this game. I actually don't know which way this is going to go. I think this France team will not want to let this down. A lot of these boys coming in now, they're looking very young, and I think they'll mostly be low or non-capped, so I think they'll be wanting to make a big statement. France at the minute have an incredibly strong, even starting 23, I would say, at this point in time. They've worked very well through the Six Nations. They'll be very unhappy with that game. They lost against Scotland in the Six Nations. It probably is their only loss this year, unless they make it to the final and probably go on to play England with this team that you have on screen, which will be a bit of a shame for them. They are playing very well at the minute, and I think they will be trying to make the most of it. I think I'm still going to pick France to win this, but I think it'll be much closer than what a lot of the people will be predicting for this game, given that it's a France-Italy game. I'm going to say my prediction for this game is going to be France to win by 10. I think it's going to be very close. I think the way Italy played against Scotland, plus an extra week's worth of rest, I think Italy are going to come at this with full force, especially with a B Team France. B Team France won't have had a lot of time to train together, so there'll probably be a little bit of lack of cohesion in those sorts of areas, but I think they're going to have to try and show off a little bit. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think France have got it in them to take it through to the final? Do you think Italy are going to cause a big upset here and manage to turn the tables on France, get their first official win of the year that wasn't just handed to them because of COVID? Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, because I genuinely am a little bit 50-50 on where this goes. I think this could even end up just who turns up on the day will come down to actually who's going to win this match. Will be a super fun game to play, though. I'm going to look forward to watching this one. This will be game 2 of this week's Autumn Nations Cup. If you've enjoyed this video, guys, make sure you leave it a like. It does really help the channel out. And if you want to check out some of our other prediction videos we've got going on for this series, make sure you subscribe just to keep up to date with all of the content as it's coming out. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Look at this, plenty of space out wide. That's it. Game over. Victory for Italy.